Since I make so many guides on this channel, I'm often asked what my ideal version of Mortal Kombat 11 would look like. So today, I thought I'd answer that question. If I was given the Infinity Gauntlet and could literally change anything, what would my version of MK11 look like? Now, of course, I'm not a game developer, so take all of this with a grain of salt. However, in my defense, I have played nearly every fighting game under the sun, and I'll also be citing other games to support my ideas. So without any further ado, let's get started. So honestly, one of the first things I would look at are the Wakeups, because to me there's just too many options, and I do like the options that we have, but I think we could simplify it a little bit. So for example, every character in this game has a Wake Up 3. And this attack is completely invincible, so if I do anything, I'm going to lose. I can't kick her out of it, and I can't even throw her out of it. She is completely immune to anything I do. And that's okay, because typically that is how it works in most fighting games. Wake-ups are usually invincible. However, here's where things stop making sense in this game. So if I block this, she's only -6, so she's still completely unpunishable. Now some characters, oddly enough, like Devora, can actually be punished, but for the most part, these attacks are safe on block on top of being invincible. And if you only play Mortal Kombat 11, that may not jump out to you as being odd, but in pretty much every other fighting game, if you do an invincible wake up, it is fully punishable. So for example, if you're playing Street Fighter and you go for a Shoryuken, it's invincible, it's gonna beat everything. However, if the opponent blocks it because they expected that, then you're eating a full combo. So not only are invincible attacks never safe in pretty much any other fighting game, but they're actually fully punishable as well. Now don't get me wrong, this game does have wake-ups that are punishable, like up 2. Now here's the weird part though, up 2 is -12, so it does mean a full combo, but oddly enough, it's also interruptible. So I can just beat this thing straight up, so it's worse in pretty much every way, which is why pretty much all players, especially at a casual level, will just do up 3. Now of course the cool thing about an up 2 is that it launches the opponent for a full combo, so that's actually quite unique. So what I would want to do if I could change anything, I would want to combine the aspects of both of these wake-ups. So instead of 2 different wake-ups, you would just have the one, but it would always launch for a full combo, and it would also be fully invincible on wake-up. However, it would also be punishable on block, because that way you have a very nice risk versus reward mechanic going. Because if I'm just being too aggressive and knocking you down, constantly doing meaties, and then you go for an invincible up 2, I'm now eating a full combo because I was being too aggressive. However, if I trick you, I can actually knock you down and expect the wake up, and now I get a full combo. That to me would make a lot more sense, not just in terms of balance, but you would also see a lot more hype combos as well, because every time a player blocks the wake up, you see a flashy combo, but every time the wake up works, you also see a flashy combo. So just more fun stuff going back and forth, and it also makes more sense in terms of balance. And that's the main thing that I would change about the wake ups. I kind of like how the rolls behave. I think they work pretty well. I like how you can throw them, but they're immune to everything else, and that's why I wouldn't really change them, because the wake up 2 would be your offensive attack. It would take the turn back, but it's also riskier, whereas the roll is purely defensive. It can't actually hit the opponent, but it is invincible to pretty much everything. So if your opponent is being way too aggressive, it's still a great way to escape pressure without risking as much. And then for my next big change, I wouldn't allow the opponent to amplify a special move on block to prevent you from punishing them. So it would still be possible, but it would be a true block string, so there wouldn't actually be a gap. And it's not just for Scorpion's teleport, I just think in general it's kind of wrong to punish the opponent for trying to play a fighting game properly. Because once again, in any other fighting game, if you do something unsafe and the opponent blocks it, you just have to deal with your mistake. You don't have any options to really save yourself. However, in Mortal Kombat 11, you pretty much have to guess, especially if the connection is really bad, and sometimes if the opponent doesn't enhance, then you just miss your chance to punish them completely. And I don't really like that system. Now hear me out, it would still be possible to amplify a move on block, but instead of being 2 hits like this, where it actually punishes the opponent for trying to respond appropriately, instead Scorpion would just attack differently right away. So instead of stabbing you, he would just swing upwards immediately and start the combo. But if you blocked that, it would still be 1 block and then you punish him. So as the opponent, you're blocking in the exact same way and punishing in the exact same way, but the Scorpion player can still amplify on block. And once again, this would make the game more hype because you'd see way more punishes, which means way more combos, and it's also just more fun in general, because now whenever the opponent does something unsafe, you know, boom, I can punish it. Now once again, keep in mind, I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to amplify it before it's blocked and therefore keep you safe. So for example, in MK9, Scorpion could amplify and keep himself safe. However, he had to spin the bar before the teleport was blocked. And that's it for change number 2. So for change number 3, I would have a look at throws and how we could change those to feel a bit less cheap as well. So throws in this game are absurdly strong. In most cases, they actually do more damage than a command grab. And then on top of the damage, these throws are also a guess, which I really really don't like. It adds this weird rock, paper, scissors element, which is confusing because a throw is already one of the options for rock, paper, scissors. Typically in a fighting game you have 3 options. You can attack, but the opponent can block that. And you can block attacks, but a throw will beat that. And if you go for a throw, a fast attack can always interrupt you. That's always how it is in pretty much every fighting game. However, in Mortal Kombat 11, there's an extra layer because not only do you have to guess if they're going to attack you, or block, or throw you, but you also have to guess which throw is it going to be, which is already tough to deal with. But then on top of that, the game actually punishes you for guessing wrong, because that means a crushing blow is coming your way. And these crushing blows do an absurd amount of damage. That's a full combo. In fact, for a lot of characters, that's more damage than a combo. And all that damage only happened because you guessed wrong twice in a row on a throw. So just keep in mind for a second how much more effort a combo like this takes. However, look at the damage though. I'm only getting around 30%, and sure that wasn't optimal, but look how many hits it was, and I still got less damage than a throw, and all it took was guessing right twice. So when you add up the damage combined with the 50-50 element and the crushing blows, throws are just way too strong for being a very easy mechanic to use that every character has access to. So to fix that, there are several things you could do, and I don't think the damage is a huge deal. I understand what they were going for with that. They wanted to make it a strong tool that every character had, but right away I would remove the 50-50 element. If you wanted to break the throw, you would just press 1+3 or just press the throw button at the same time. And this would make Mortal Kombat 11 function pretty much like every other fighting game. So you couldn't just mash your way out. That wouldn't actually break the throw no matter how much you tried, which oddly enough does save you sometimes in this game, since 1 or 2 can actually break the throw. So if you're mashing uppercuts, sometimes you actually break the throw, which you weren't even trying to, you just got lucky. So having the player press the throw button instead not only makes it easier to break consistently because you no longer have to guess, but it also ensures the opponent can't escape your throw just because they were mashing violently on their controller. However, I don't want to get rid of the throw crushing blow, though by the way I would give it to every single character, and the requirement would be pretty much the same. The way you would land the crushing blow for the throw is to land 3 throws without any of them missing or being broken. So in other words, you could land 2 throws in the first round and then wait to the very end of the third round and land your final throw and still get the crushing blow. The only rule is you can't ever miss them or have the opponent break them. This would not only reward the player for breaking throws more consistently, but it would also ensure the opponent has to be a bit more sneaky with their throws. They can't just do them all the time. Whereas right now in MK11, you know the throw is coming, but you're too afraid to let go of block because there could also be a combo. So instead you guess which throw is coming and you hope for the best, and I just don't like that the game works that way, honestly. And next up, how about combo breakers? So a lot of people don't like the breakaway in this game, and I don't think it's terrible. And I think it's cool that NetherRealm tried something different, but pretty much nobody likes this mechanic. It seems like even pro players, they hate this thing. And the main reason why is because the opponent can actually punish you for trying to do your combo, and it also forces you to guess. This game has a lot of guessing. You guess on throws, you guess on the breakaway, guessing, and more guessing. And for breakaway, this guess means a lot of the time you're just dashing forward and doing an uppercut, because you're not sure if they're gonna break away or not, but the uppercut at least gives you some decent damage. But it does just kinda suck how you're never really sure. Now oddly enough, they did add a counter breakaway mechanic, which was a great step in the right direction. And for some characters like Collector, it's just godlike. However, the issue is that some characters did not get a good breakaway, so the guessing game is pretty much the exact same for them. And honestly, to fix that, I would just remove it and replace it with the typical combo breaker in pretty much every Mortal Kombat game, or I would give every character a really good breakaway that snuffs it out every time and has decent speed as well. However, instead of a crushing blow or a knockdown, every breakaway would act the same and just relaunch the opponent for a new combo. Not only would that be a lot flashier and more fun to watch as a spectator, but it would also be more rewarding for the player as well. And then for my next big change, I would nerf uppercuts in a lot of ways, but also buff them in one way as well. So my main issue with uppercuts in this game is that they're just too fast, and as a result, players love to mash them all the time, because not only can they possibly get a really sick crushing blow, but it's also safe on block as well with tons of pushback. So to fix this problem, I would make uppercuts slower. Not by a ton, but maybe like 12 or 14 frames on startup. That way you can't just mash them on reaction to a high attack like this. I don't think it should ever be possible to just mash an uppercut and get a crushing blow for that. However, if you did duck a slower move like a throw or even this back 2 for example, then you would still have time to see it and then do an uppercut. It would still work. And then on top of that, I would also make it punishable on block as well with pretty much no pushback. This would also help reduce the desire to mash it out all the time at random, because every time you did and the opponent opponent blocked it, they would get a full combo. So instead of just trying to do it all the time and hoping for that crushing blow, you would have to actually duck something and then see it miss and go for it. Because if you're not careful, the opponent's going to keep comboing you and you're not going to get anywhere, so random uppercuts just wouldn't work. However, as mentioned earlier, I would also make uppercuts stronger in one way, so they would be completely upper body invulnerable to any jumping attacks. So if the opponent's in the air for whatever reason, this would be your go-to anti-air, and it would do a lot of damage. As I'm sure many of you know by now, anti-airs are one of the biggest issues a lot of players have, because some characters have decent ones while other characters have none. However, every character has an uppercut, so if uppercuts were basically invincible to jumping attacks, then every character would not only have an anti-air, but a pretty darn good one. Or in other words, we're killing two birds with one stone. The opponent is no longer mashing uppercuts randomly, so that's good and much less frustrating, but at the same time, every character now has a decent and reliable anti-air. And next up, let's talk about fatal blows. So I don't think that any fatal blow should ever be tough to punish, like at all. So that's -41. That's good, but I don't think we even need the pushback. I would make every fatal blow super stupid easy to punish. Because once again, much like a wake up, it has a risk and reward already built in. If you catch the opponent off guard, you get a bunch of damage for just 2 buttons. However, at the same time, if the opponent blocks it, they get a good reward as well. So high risk, high reward, it makes a lot of sense to me. And then on top of that, I wouldn't have any supers that reach beyond jumping distance. No full screen stuff, that to me is just a bit too ridiculous. And finally, I would also consider the possibility of adding a screen freeze before the super, much like in Injustice 2, especially since this game is copying heavily the way that supers work in Tekken 7, but even in that game there still is a screen freeze because they realize how strong supers can be, on top of the fact that there's no meter management either. You only have this super because you're low on health. And as a result, I think adding a screen freeze could be a really good idea, because that way you can't just catch the opponent off guard by doing it randomly in the neutral or just catching them off guard in a bad connection. With these changes implemented, not only would there be less random YOLO supers, but if the opponent did do it, you'd see more punished combos, which would just make the game more hype in general. And then last but not least, every character would have access to a 10 frame mid or low at minimum, and they would also have at least an 8 frame punish. This way every character would feel a bit more fair, especially up close, because unfortunately in this game, one of the most important things for your character is if they have a fast mid or a low. If they don't, then they're immediately worse. So once again, I would just give every character access to at least a 10 frame mid and possibly faster, and they would also all have the same punish as well, though I think Shao Kahn is the only character who still doesn't have an 8 frame standing punish. And then on top of all of that, there would be an input buffer on everything, so not just when the opponent blocks you, they have an input buffer, and I think that is good. But if you have plus frames, there would also be an input buffer on your attacks as well, and this would also work on hit to make combos a bit easier at the same time. So in summary, pretty much everything would have an input buffer, which is actually pretty standard at this point in time. I'm pretty sure that every fighting game that's come out in the past 5 years has had input buffers like this. Oddly enough, Mortal Kombat 11 is the only one that doesn't have inputs like this on a lot of attacks. They have it on block, which I think is really good and certainly a step in the right direction. So just to tie things up in a neat little bow, I would add an input buffer to everything. The attacks on hit, on block, doesn't matter. Every single attack would have an input buffer of some kind. And finally, that's it everybody, or at least it's all that comes to mind at the moment. So if you agree with any of my ideas or just found this video entertaining, then please leave a like down below. And then why not keep that combo going by suplexing that subscribe button? That way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.